Hello and welcome to our Euro 2020 event, a preview of the England against Scotland game at the Euros at Wembley tonight. My name is Sam Wallace. I'm the Chief Football Writer at the Daily Telegraph. Over the next 45 minutes, I'll be talking with my colleague Jason Burt and Ally McCoist, one of the greats of Scottish football, to look ahead to tonight's match and also to some of the games in the past between our two countries. Without further ado, I would like to introduce my first guest, my colleague, the Chief Football Correspondent of the Telegraph, Jason Burt. Here's Jason. Hi, welcome, Jason.
Hi, Sam. You okay?
Okay, and I would also like to welcome Ally McCoist. Ally's just landing now. Now, Ally, welcome to the Telegraph.
Thank you.
Ally, just before we start, I'd just like to recap your many achievements because I think as such a familiar face in British football, it's always worth telling our viewers and our readers as well, our Telegraph readers, just what you achieved in the game. You are, of course, Scotland and Rangers legend. Rangers, you scored 419 goals, which is the club's all-time record in your time there between 1983 and 1998. You played for Scotland for 12 years. You won 66 caps. You featured at one World Cup final and 2 European Championships, as well as Euro 92. Played at Euro 96 in that famous game at Wembley between England and Scotland, and you also scored the only goal at Villa Park in Scotland's win over Switzerland. You've managed Rangers, taken the club up 2 divisions, been a broadcaster with the BBC on A Question of Sport, and also, I have to say, your return to punditry with ITV at the Euros has been universally acclaimed by the viewers, so we're really delighted to have you here with us, Ally.
Thanks very much, Sam. Jason, it's great to see you guys, and really looking forward to having a chat with everybody.
I think a good place to start, Ally, is we're talking your column today in the Telegraph. You talk about an amazing day that sort of seems more, well, certainly to football fans of a certain vintage, that great game at Wembley 25 years ago. And you picked out some great details from that game. I mean, obviously we all talk about the Gascoigne goal, but also the famous penalty missed by your teammate Gareth Southgate, and that the ball moved on the penalty spot just before he struck it.
So honestly, it's amazing. You tell people that story, and they genuinely and understandably look at you as if you're joking and you're kidding them on, but. I mean, I was actually standing on the 18-yard box when Gary ran up to hit it, and I promise you the ball moved. I mean, don't get me wrong, it didn't. I don't think it influenced the strike or the events of the penalty at all, because we've seen it 100 times since, and I've got to tell you that Gary strikes the ball probably as well as he wanted to. David Seaman dives to his right and makes a excellent save. Heartbreakingly for us, an excellent save. But it was bizarre. It was one of these bizarre situations that I've only seen it happen once in the football, but because the thing you've got to back it up with as well, you've got to let the readers and the viewers know that it was a still day. Yeah. You know, it wasn't windy, it was quite a calm day. And contrary to Yuri Geller's side of events, I'm still not buying that he moved the ball. However, in his defence, I will say that it moved ever so slightly.
Well, it was an incredible day, and of course, Jason, I think you mentioned to me earlier that Ally's goal against Switzerland was, I'm right in saying, the last winning goal for Scotland at a major tournament. Is that right? So it's fair to say that it's been a long time coming, Euro 2020. For the Scottish, and of which you are one, Jason. Of course, you've got the softest Scottish accent of any Scotsman I've ever met, but you are your loyalties are north of the border.
They are, yes. I was born in Scotland, lived the first 7 years of my life in Scotland, so I count myself as a Scot. So actually, covering the game tonight is quite difficult, Sam, because when the draw was made and they were both in the same group, my reaction wasn't, oh great, it was oh no. Because I want them both to go through. And it sounds awful saying that in some ways, because as a Scot, you shouldn't be saying that. But obviously my family are English, my kids are English, and they're kind of horrified by the Scottishness I bring out on occasions. But I deliberately went to the game on Monday in Glasgow because I wanted to be there for the first game, major finals for 23 years, and obviously the first in Scotland. And it was a difficult match report to write. Let's just say that, considering I was getting carried away at the start and thinking, here we go, and very typical Scotland performance in many ways, Ali, wasn't it?
Just, do you know, I thought it actually, dare I say it, it epitomised Scotland in major tournaments. It really did.
It did.
You know, played away okay. We weren't brilliant by any stretch of imagination. You know, if anything, I thought we were slightly the better team without being brilliant. We clearly had opportunities, very good opportunities, to which we should have done better with and we should have capitalised on. And then, you know, in many ways, we've seen it 100 times. I thought the Czechs scored an excellent goal, which hasn't effectively been spoken about really in any great detail because of the second goal, to be honest with you. And then I thought when the second goal went in, I wouldn't say the heads went down, but you could see that you know, that it definitely knocked a kind of spirit and fire out the Scottish side. So it kind of summed up Scotland in major tournaments, nearly but not quite, you know. And it's something that we just keep our fingers crossed and we pray will change one day.
Ali, can your career and your experience spans so many generations. I mean, when you started playing, I think you made your debut for Scotland in '86. That was shortly after that great team had gone to the World Cup under Alex Ferguson, with so many good players who were all massive figures in English football as well, a lot of them at the time. And you go from that to the kind of the pressure that we've seen these lads under, the Andy Robertsons and the McTominays, to qualify for these Euros, and the sheer relief they felt when they made it. I know this is probably takes you about it would normally take about 3 hours to answer. What's happened to Scottish football between those two epochs?
You know, I just think there's been there has been a dearth in talent, to be honest with you. You can look for reasons for it. There is an element, and there's a train of thought. Well, I have a little bit of a train of thought where arguably we overachieved in terms of qualification for World Cups. When you think about it, you know, we qualified for 74, 78, 82, 86, 90, you know, and that run, you could argue it was overachieving. And then all of a sudden, and you spoke about it there, because I remember when I broke into the national team, I mean, the strikers, it was Dalglish, it was Jordan, it was Stevie Archibald, Graham Sharp, Charlie Nicholas, Maurice Johnson, Frank McAvenny. It was all these guys who were playing at the top level, whether it was at Rangers or Celtic, or certainly, you know, down in England with Arsenal and Liverpool and all these teams. So we were fortunate, I think, to go into that team's kind of footsteps equally with some great players. You know, the McAllisters and the Goffs and people like that. McStay at Celtic, I always felt was a top player. So we were lucky in the respect that it kind of naturally followed on. We're qualifying for World Cups and European Championships. And then I think, listen, I don't think there's any other way to describe it and say that the talent, you know, the actual talent decreased for us, and it was nowhere at the level that it once was. And it was a concerning time to be a Scotland supporter. There's no doubt about that, and I include myself on that. And then with a generation of players who were very, very good players, but we didn't have enough of them to form a good side. You know, you remember with guys like Darren Fletcher as well, and Scott Brown at Celtic, Barry Ferguson. They were excellent players, but sadly never qualified for a major tournament. But now we have, and Sam, Jason, I don't think it's rocket science. We now have a level of player who is playing at a great level. You know, we've now got players that are playing at Liverpool, Manchester United, Aston Villa, Arsenal, Southampton. And I think you can see that. You know, we are far from, you know, the finished article, but we now have players that I think that can compete to get to major tournaments again, which for us is completely and utterly a step back in the right direction. There's no doubt about that. And when we got the result in Serbia, lads, when we beat Serbia in penalties, my overriding feeling was clearly I was pleased for the country and I was pleased for the supporters, but I was most pleased for the players, because I'd been fortunate enough to play at major tournaments for Scotland, and I knew how much it meant to me. I knew how much it meant to the family. And I just felt this is magic. Guys like Robertson and Tierney, McGinn are now going to sample that for themselves. And I was just so pleased for them.
What do you think, Jace? What do you think in terms of the sort of the pressure? Where does it lie tonight? Does it lie on the English lads, or is this a free hit for Scotland?
I think it's a free hit for Scotland because obviously they want to qualify, for the last 16. So they've got 2 more games. 3 points might be enough. So I think of the 2 games they've got left, it's the one where there is actually less pressure on them in some ways, because obviously Croatia will be the game that might define whether they go through to the last 16. So I think they're dangerous opposition tonight. And what was interesting yesterday, listening to Gareth Southgate, was you got that balance between realising that obviously you are clearly the far superior team and you should progress into the last 16 and you've got bigger targets in terms of actually winning this tournament, and also being quite aware of the danger of this game. And what was interesting was he spoke about 2 games against Scotland for the World Cup qualifiers, and obviously the game up in Glasgow when Lee Griffiths scored the 2 free kicks. That still haunts him. He said in the past he's had sleepless nights, or he still sees those goals in his sleep. And that was a game that kind of affected him quite a lot. And I remember Harry Kane scored in the last minute. I think Southgate was a bit spooked by that, because suddenly it went from a situation where England were in control of the game. Scotland then went 2-1 up. The emotion of the occasion was very raw, and England was struggling. And I don't think they've had too many games like that under Southgate. And then the second game he talked about was the game when they then beat Scotland. Before that, they beat Scotland 3-0 at Wembley. Yeah. He admitted last night, if they hadn't won that game, if they hadn't gone forward, he probably wouldn't be the England manager now. So the resonance of playing Scotland is quite great. And obviously he was in the team in '96 as well. And obviously he's a little bit older, so he knows about the historic rivalry much more than the current crop of players. So I was interested at how much on more than one level it was affecting him, the kind of like getting that balance right about how do you attack this game tonight. But yeah, I think Scotland have to play on that. They have to prey on that, and they have to try and take advantage of that. I think if they get at England, they could change the dynamic of the game quite a lot, because England won't expect that. Well, they will expect it, but they haven't experienced it for a while. And it is still a young team. So Scotland get at them, and there will be a crowd in the stadium tonight. So that again changes it slightly. So I think it will be interesting to see if Scotland are brave enough to go at England and try and get in their faces, really. I think it will be interesting to see how England react to that.
Do you see that, Ali? I mean, do you see that as the Scottish approach? I mean, can they go there like Sweden did against Spain and sort of try and counterattack, or will they play higher up the pitch?
I don't think we'll play higher up the pitch, Sam. But do you know something? If you're offering me a Swedish performance against Spain right now, I would take it. Yeah. I mean, Spain clearly could have and should have won the game on chances created. At the same time, Isak could have, the one for Berg, it was conceivable that Spain could have lost that game, which would have been an amazing result. It really would have. But the one thing, looking at the Swedish performance, where I would hope Scotland would be the same. There was an element and an understanding that you're not going to have the majority of the possession, right? So it's vitally important, that you are organised and prepared, as you would expect and hope, to keep your shape and be disciplined. But equally, it's so important for Scotland tonight that when we do get the ball back, that we can keep it. And we have to be good in possession. Clearly, we've got to be aggressive as well going forward, and we've got to be, aggressive in and out of possession. But at the same time, we have to take players that our players have to be confident in possession of the ball and in use of the ball. Because make no mistake about it, if we're not and we give it away cheaply, it will just be attack after attack after attack. And you need to be very, very fortunate against this England team, who middle to front, I think, are as good as they've been in a long, long time to survive 90 minutes. So also looking at it, guys, a little bit like, Sweden versus Spain. I'm not sure whether you agree. Spanish, fantastic football side. Where's their strengths? Middle to front. Weakness, potentially at the back. I think England are the same. You'd have to say defensively, they're not. I don't think they're as good as they are in other areas of the park. So you have to attack that weakness if and when you can. And that's where I think set plays, particularly down the left-hand side and open play, You know, if we can get Tierney and Robertson combining and let them know we can down the left-hand side, I think that will be our best opportunity. But there's a lot of things will have to go Scotland's way, like I say. But I thought, looking at the Swedish performance against Spain, yes, they rode their luck a little bit. Scotland will have to ride their luck a little bit tonight. Of course they will. But if you can get out with the same train of thought, the same organisation, and the same aggression when you do have the ball to go and play, then you'll always have a chance.
All the newspapers are reporting, including the Telegraph this morning, that he switched his fullback, so he's going to go for Luke Shaw instead of Trippier at left back and Reece James at right back instead of Kyle Walker. Why is he doing that? What's his thinking, do you think?
Well, if anyone saw the way Reece James played in the Champions League final, one-on-one defending, and it's Scotland's strength, which clearly is their strength down that left-hand side, and you've got to try and nullify Andy Robertson, then I would back Reece James as quite a good option to do that. You know, Kyle Walker didn't have his greatest game last Sunday, but I think that James has that appetite for that one-on-one battle, you know, and also he has the energy to also get up the pitch as well, as Walker does. But I think that James was just so impressive, and has been so impressive in England shirt, actually. I know he was sent off, but by and large, he's been absolutely exceptional. He really has impressed Gareth Southgate. And I just see that I can see why there's a lot of logic in playing Reece James tonight against Scotland, especially because you've got to try and stop Scotland down the left. And I think in terms of left backs for England, I think it was an interesting choice to go with Trippier on Sunday, and I think that was almost like help Tyrone Mings get through that experience of that first sort of game at a big championships. And I think therefore when you've got two good left backs in Shaw and Chilwell, you have to also kind of rotate your squad a little bit. I think it's a toss-up between Chilwell and Shaw. It looks like he will go with Shaw. I wouldn't be surprised if he then goes with Chilwell for the last game, just to give them all a group match. But again, I think, you know, it's not like he's going to weaken the team greatly by playing Luke Shaw. But I think the real interesting choice is like Reece James down that right.
And in the Scotland team, there's the received wisdom seems to be that it's a kind of 3-5-1, 3-5-3. Get this right, 3-4-3. As a goal scorer yourself, do you think he'll go with Shea Adams up front this time?
I do, Sam. Listen, we're in the business now. We're all experts before, during, and after the game. I would have gone with two up front for the Czech Republic game, to be honest with you. And my reason for that is quite simple. It's not our only chance of 3 points, by far from it, but I thought it was our best chance of 3 points. And I would have played Adams and Dykes. I think in this particular game against England, we have to accept that England will have the majority of possession. That's why I agree with Jason. I also think, if I'm in Gareth's shoes, I probably would change my fullbacks. You know, you certainly get one in the left or two in the left that will go forward. And Reece James has a fantastic season and is in top form. From our point of view, the decisions we have to make, are so important. Do we bring McTominay out in the midfield and play him at right centre back? Do we play Billy Gilmore for ball retention and passing ability? And do we go with Dykes and Adams up front? To answer all those questions, the first thing I would do, I think Adams starts for me, Sam. He does, and I know there will be a physical presence of Dykes. And a lot of the Scots will want to go 3-5-2, 5-3-2. I'm not so sure he will, and I'm not so sure I would. I think it is, as I said, the importance of keeping the ball is absolutely imperative, and putting England under pressure at the right times is imperative. So I think that formation that you have mentioned will be probably what it will go. I think he'll try and overload his two wide boys and the three up front. Will absolutely drop back, and fill into an area, because England in wider areas, bizarre as this may seem, guys, I would be a lot happier if he played Grealish, Mount and Foden with Harry Kane. And I'll give you my reasons for that. You might be thinking I've completely lost my marbles, but my reasons for that is it would take away the pace in England's attack. I'm more fearful, not more fearful, but I'm certainly fearful of Rashford and Sterling's pace. Sterling was excellent against Croatia because he threatened in behind as well, and from England's point of view, gave him an option of going over the top. So my point, without going on and on, our two lads, front lads in the three, will be so important to us. They'll have to come back clearly, and we'll have defensive duties. But at the same time, if and when we can get high up the park, we have to get high up the park and let England, be concerned about our boys going forward and take them into areas where effectively they don't want to be in.
It's interesting, Ali mentions sort of retaining the ball, and Billy Gilmour, we've seen bits of him at Chelsea, and he's just such an exceptional talent. Obviously signed by Chelsea as a teenager from Rangers, moved down south, and has done what so few managed to do, which is come through the academy and get into the first team. Would it be crazy, given he's had the injury, he's not played much this season? Would that be a Steve Clarke move to throw him into a game like this?
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head there. I'm not sure Steve Clarke as a coach would start with Billy Gilmour. I would be tempted to do so because of what Ali's talking about with that ball retention. He's played Champions League football. He's played at the highest level. It's not as if he couldn't cope. He couldn't cope with the occasion. I think I would be tempted to go with him. I think I would have probably played him against Czech Republic as well, actually. By the way,
yeah.
But I don't think Steve Clarke will personally. But I think Scotland would have a better chance with him in that midfield. And as Ali said, I think it's interesting to see where he then plays McTominay as well. I think that's a big choice. But I just think he will go for a bit more experience tonight. I don't know what you think, Ali.
Yeah, do you know something? I'm in agreement with you, Jason. I just think I'm not necessarily in agreement with Stevie Clarke if he does it, because I think you're spot on with your assessment. There's no way this game's a free hit. It's not a free hit, but everybody would expect England, as I say, to a majority of the ball and potentially be favourites and win the game. However, I just think it is an opportunity not to gamble as such, because people might call it a gamble, but these guys are there because they're good players, and they're there because they can play at international level. Effectively, they don't have a lot of international experience. Young lad Patterson, Nathan Patterson at Rangers, or Billy Gilmour. But come on, let's get, if they're good enough, we've got to give them an opportunity to play. It's not, you could be sitting here saying England win the game 2-0, 3-0 comfortably, and saying, why do we not give these young guys an opportunity to play? I'm more of the train of thought, Jason, that I would give them an opportunity to play. Yeah. Really, genuinely would, because there will be an element, myself included, and a lot of the Scots guys will cut them a little bit of slack because they're younger. They've been thrown into the lion's den, if you like. So if it doesn't work out, there will be an element of say, come on, okay, it was England. Let's give them, another opportunity. But I'm with you. I'm not sure Stevie will do it. And my reason for that is because I actually looked at Stevie's team selection for the Czech Republic, and I thought that was also very safe. I can understand why he did it, but I also thought that might have been an opportunity to throw in Gilmour or Patterson, or certainly play two up front, and he chose not to do it, which is absolutely fine. So I'm leaning towards, would I do it? Probably yes, but then again, I'm not sitting here as Scotland manager with all the pressure on me having to pick a side. But I'm not sure Stevie will, lads.
From our readers, we've got one here from Rajendra Patel, who asks the timeless question about goalkeepers in this fixture, which was always a point of debate when Ian St John and Jimmy Greaves were presenting on ITV in my childhood. Who has a better goalkeeper for this game, England or Scotland? Ali, why don't you go first?
I will do. I will do. And you talk about managers at international level. Sometimes players at club level will lose a bit of form, but they've never let the international manager down, and he'll stick by them. And I get all that. But I would still go clearly Pickford. I think is a more than capable goalkeeper for England. I like a little bit like perhaps Stones. I think there's an error in there. I definitely think there is an error in there. And clearly, Gordon Marshall will now be haunted David Marshall will now be haunted for the rest of his life by events at Hampden last Monday because, listen, guys, I thought he was too far off his line in general play. If he's 10 yards back the way, Patrick Schick doesn't gamble that. He sees the opportunity's not there. So I don't think both countries have goalkeepers of the quality they once had. In fact, I would even take it a step further, guys. I probably don't think Scotland are playing their best goalkeeper.
Yeah.
Because I actually think Scotland's best goalkeeper isn't in the squad. It's Rangers' Alan McGregor, who has had an absolutely phenomenal season. However, we're looking at what we've got. As I said, I don't think both international teams have the quality they once had. And I don't think there's an awful lot to pick between Pickford and Marshall, to tell you the honest truth. I think it goes without saying Marshall will have more to do this evening, but I don't think there's an awful lot to pick between the two of them.
I mean, I think the thing with Marshall is obviously, as Ali said, that second goal will haunt him for the rest of his career. But he also made 2 or 3 exceptional saves in that game. People have forgotten that, and he certainly wasn't at fault for the first goal.
No.
And actually, he made some very, very good saves as well. And, I felt for him, really. And I think he probably was a victim of... He must have been told to play that high, surely, Ali. And he's not just choosing himself to play that high. And without being funny, he's 37, 36. It's a long way to run back when you're that age to get back in the goal. He's not a young player. So I think he was a bit of a victim of the tactics as much as anything.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, if I was to hazard a guess, I don't think he'll be that far out off his line the next couple of games, gentlemen.
Yeah.
Question that often get asked on the eve of big games: how many Scottish players would make a combined 11? It's a tough one, and I think there's been times in the past where the easy answer would be 0. But I think that's changed a bit, Ali, isn't it?
Oh yeah, I mean, you'd have to say the improvement in the English squad is there and it's evident for everybody to see. But at the same time, I think we've got 3 players that you could have certainly 3 or 4 players that we could now have a discussion about. Whereas before, in the last 10, 15 years, potentially 0, to be quite honest with you. We could maybe say 1, 0, whatever it may be. But I now look at the Scotland squad, and I think we could now have a discussion about Kieran Tierney, Andrew Robertson, McTominay, McGinn, for example. Apart from that, not a lot. Let's be honest about it. And I'm not saying those 4 would definitely get in the England team, because I don't think they would. But I think the positive thing from Scotland's point of view, we can now have a discussion about 3 or 4 players, whereas before, in recent years, we couldn't have had that discussion.
Question about sort of England's midfield, and I know Southgate wants to pick different sides according to opposition, but what do you think the attacking 6 ideally? How should that look? What's England's best attacking 6?
Well, one of the big debates, obviously, going into the tournament was what formation England were going to play, and Gareth's quite interesting on that because he talks about having options, and I think one of the things that England have probably been guilty of in the past is sticking to the formation and just carrying on that way, come what may, not being willing to be fluid. So obviously we were talking about a 3-4-3, and now he seems to have gone with a 4-3-3, which I prefer with England. And in that midfield 3, obviously, that started against Croatia, he had Rice, he had Phillips, and he had Mount. And what was interesting was how he used Phillips in a different way, because we hadn't seen Phillips play like that for England before. And he was much more advanced, or even occasions when he was the most advanced player in the team. And that was interesting to see him play in that sort of roving destroyer role, but also creating. We saw that with the goal. So that was, and I think that worked perfectly well against Croatia. But he has got lots of options. So I think he is able and willing to chop and change. And what the players really come into the equation recently, and as I know for a fact, has trained fantastically well and impresses everyone with his maturity, is Jude Bellingham. But Jude Bellingham's played in the Bundesliga. He's played in a Champions League and scored in a Champions League quarter-final against Manchester City. He's 17 years old. I don't think Gareth Southgate would think twice about putting him into the team if he has to. So I think he's an interesting option going forward. I think that midfield 3 starting against Croatia probably is the three at the moment that he will go with. He's got to manage Jordan Henderson quite clearly, and I think you'll see Henderson as being quite an important player later into the competition, where that experience will become more of a factor for England. But I also like the balance of the front three against Croatia as well, because I think Foden didn't have his greatest game, neither did Kane, but clearly I think those two should play. And I completely agree with Ali. I think I just totally understand the clamour for Jack Grealish. Brilliant player, talented player, would walk into any team, should probably be in the England team. But if you play him and you play Foden, and Foden is quick, but not as quick as Sterling. Yeah. And he doesn't run in behind the way Sterling does or Rashford does. So he's got this fantastic option now of not having to play both Sterling and Rashford. He can play one or the other, or one can play for an hour and one can come on for half an hour. England have got so many options going forward, but I think the six who started in those areas against Croatia, I think that looked really well balanced, and I think that's not a bad option going forward with those other possibilities, as I mentioned already. I could really see Bellingham personally becoming a more and more important player as well as the competition goes on, because even coming on against Croatia, he looked the part. He was winning the ball, he was winning fouls, he was slowing the play down at the right time. He played tactically very, very well. And as I say, I know he's impressed everyone around England. We cannot believe he's 17. We just cannot believe he is 17. Doesn't look 17, doesn't talk like a 17-year-old, doesn't play like a 17-year-old. Jose Mourinho's talked about, he's picked him out as the talent in the England squad, and I'm with him, and I think sometimes you just see these sort of things happening. Even a young player, as young as he is, we've mentioned Billy Gilmour already for Scotland. I just think if they're good enough, put them in, especially if you create the right environment around them, if you've got the experience of other players around them. What was interesting again on Sunday was that he went for an older defence, an experienced defence, to give those other players that platform. And I think, to be fair to Gareth, he got all the big calls right on Sunday. Yeah. And I think he's always thinking about the balance of the team, experience and youth. And he's getting that right so far. And I just think that England, those options are incredible for them. And I think, as I say, that six who played against Croatia, I'll probably go forward with it in the competition. Although I think he might make changes, obviously, for the third game.
We should reminisce a bit about your glorious past, Ali. And I'm glad to say there is a question glorying in your goal against Switzerland, which was whole end of the Villa Park. I'm right in saying it. Yeah. I think you should tell us what that was like, and because you were very, very close to getting through to the next round as a team. It wasn't it the goal that Holland scored that they went through on goals scored, I think, didn't they, in second?
Absolutely. We mentioned Scotland's glorious failures before, and it would be remiss of me not to give you another occasion of Scottish glorious failure, which I was involved in. Now, before we get any further, I have to inform you, we got knocked out that tournament in goals scored, and every time I see big David Seaman, I do wind him up about that goal he lost through his legs to Patrick Kluivert. But gentlemen, if I was going to be brutally honest with you and hold my hands up, I should have added to my 1-0, my goal against Switzerland. I had another couple of chances and I should have scored. So therefore, the responsibility was me, not David Seaman or Patrick Kluivert. But it was amazing. And the great thing was, Sam, Jason, before the game in the warm-up, we were warming up at that goal. And I saw a guy that was in my BB and was in my class at school in the crowd, right at that post behind that goal. And I gave him a wave before the game and I had a wee chat with him before the game. And there was just something magical about when Gary McAllister rolled that. I mean, Gary, as you know, guys, was an incredibly intelligent football player. And the strike for the goal was without doubt one of my better ones. But if you look at the pass, it's actually an amazing 3-yard pass, because you don't have to break stride at all. I mean, it looks pretty simple, but he knows what he's doing, Gary, and it was just perfect to hit. And I do remember striking it, and I do remember thinking it was a good strike, and then I just saw it fade at the last minute, going right into the corner, and it was a memory that certainly will be with me to my dying days, and it was magical. But I do remember also, with a couple of minutes to go, thinking we need another goal here because England had just lost one, who I have to say were sensational that night against the Dutch. arguably England's best performance of Euro '96. That performance with Shearer and Sheringham. So it was a wonderful tournament with so many wonderful memories. But we started it well with a draw against the Dutch. We had a good draw against the Dutch, and such as things now. That competition, we would have qualified for the latter stages if the rules were the same. Blame UEFA.
You went to Italia '90 as well, didn't you? So what was it like in those days for our younger readers before there was, you had Wi-Fi in the hotel and all those things? How did you keep up with what was being said back home about the team? Did you have the newspapers delivered, or what happened?
Yeah, we're very much. It was like in days of pre-Wi-Fi and all that kind of stuff. It was effectively, it wasn't quite Morse code, but it certainly was newspapers and things like that. And we would have, just through the press conferences, basically, as you can imagine, the same as today, there'd be press conferences every morning. It would be different players would go, and of course, information from back home would be getting relayed to you via families and friends and things like that, and phone calls. Whereas now, I mean, it's just a completely different environment. You pick up your phone and you could be anywhere in the world. So, but back in the day, it was definitely different. But we were very, very well informed. Plus the fact, particularly Italia '90, most of your family and your village were in, Genoa with you at the same time, or Turin, or wherever we were. So it was amazing times and amazing memories. But certainly in terms of communication, completely different to as it is now. But at the same time, we're always very, very well informed. We had great contact, great communication with people around us.
I hear managers saying they're worried about players looking at social media at half time of big games. And that was never been the case in your era. That just that sort of stuff didn't happen. So how do you think the players deal with the sort of pressure of a game like this? How would you advise them to?
Well, do you know something? And it's not so much as a disciplinary action, but I would avoid all phones, certainly, prior to the game, at least the day of the game, because you've got to be 100% focused. And I understand, and I know a lot of the guys, particularly younger guys, ain't happy with it, with some managers and coaches banning phones from dressing rooms and things like that. But I understand it, and I get it. And I also understand the importance and the significance of attempting to keep teams and formations in-house, because it's so easy nowadays. If a player's left out, he picks up the phone, he's on the phone to his agent, I'm not playing, and before you know it, your team's all over the place. And that is, as you can appreciate, as a manager and a coach's absolute nightmare. But I did notice the England team, and it brilliantly, I mean, let's be honest about it, guys, I don't know about you, but you could have given me 100 picks at Gareth's team against Croatia, and I wouldn't have come up with that. I mean, even to the extent, as you say, Jason, Phillips playing one forward ahead of Rice. Brilliant. It was fantastic. Playing Sterling, obviously, Trippier at left back. I would never have come up with that. But to their eternal credit, it didn't get out. So that is so important. And I would imagine Gareth has clearly had a chat with the squad and had a chat with the players, because believe me, guys, there is nothing more frustrating for a manager or a coach to get up in the morning of the game and see every tactical plan or switch that he has in the back pages staring at him. And I know it's our job now to find it.
Yeah. There's nothing worse than a newspaper when the team sheet comes and you think, oh, we've got about 5 of these wrong. I'd be interested. I know I'm sort of putting you on the spot a bit, Ali, but we always like to sort of try and read the tea leaves and what's going to happen. I mean, with your sort of being dispassionate, what's your prediction for this evening?
Well, my prediction is I actually think Scotland can get a draw, right? I genuinely do. I genuinely think Scotland can get a draw, but it's like anything else, guys. For us to get a result at Wembley tonight, there has to be a lot of things go our way, right? Because 8, 9 times out of 10, you look at that, and England would beat most opposition, never mind Scotland. So there has to be things that will go your way on the night. And I know I said it at the start of our chat. 2 things we have to do differently that we didn't do on the Monday night against the Czech Republic. That is, we have to be much better in possession of the ball. We really have to show a courage and a belief when we get the ball that we know how good England are, but we have to impose ourselves and take responsibility when we have the ball and have to run off the ball, give players option. We've got to keep it. And the biggest thing is probably the most obvious thing, what we didn't do on Monday night against the Czechs. We have to take any opportunity that comes our way.
Well, I fear that. Well, it's very difficult, isn't it? I mean, I cover England, but I still want Scotland to do well. I fear a 2-1 win for England. I think it might be a bit too much for Scotland to get something out of the game. But if those factors that Ali mentioned go their way, yeah, definitely, I think Scotland can get something. But I'm a bit worried that they're going to lose the game. What will probably happen, Ali, is they'll lose tonight and then they'll beat Croatia and go out on some convoluted reason why, the alphabetical order or something. They'll go out on something or other, won't they?
Jason, I'm just sitting here praying. We were talking about it last night, and I'm thinking to myself, from a Scottish fan's point of view, we must surely be running out of options of ways to stop us qualifying.
Some new ones.
It's goals for, goals against, goal difference. I don't know. We must be running out of ways not to qualify.
Yeah, maybe they'll go out because they lost the goal of the tournament.
I wouldn't rule it out, mate.
It's probably in the US.
I have to agree with you, Jace. I think if England come strong like they did, that sort of first 20 minutes against Croatia, and they get one, I think it could be very difficult for Scotland. I can't really see past an England win, but then I am the only Englishman on this panel, so. But look, we've run out of time. Ali, it's been brilliant to speak to you, and your columns in the Telegraph have been such an asset to the paper. We're really delighted to have you on board. So thank you, Ali. Thank you, Jason. And thank you to the audience at home for watching. Very much hope that you've enjoyed the conversation. Thank you if you are a subscriber to the Telegraph for subscribing. Enjoy the game tonight at 8 o'clock, whatever persuasion you are, English or Scottish. And hopefully we will be joining you for another one of these sessions soon. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much, guys.